Oh, Lord, technology.
I know. Okay, well, let's just take a deep breath and exhale. And welcome.
What's up?
I'm excited to have you here.
I know, this is pretty crazy.
Yeah, welcome everyone that's watching. I'm Jaime Black. I'm the host of Silverlake Priestess Podcast, and we're excited to be here live on YouTube and Facebook and also Twitch. So please say hi to us. Let us know where you're watching from. So, Sal is my first male specimen on the show. I've been doing this for a couple years and it's been very female focused. It's all about, I've interviewed witches and priestesses and people serving their sacred purpose through spiritual work. So people who are psychic and read cards, and maybe they're musicians that work with magic. And so anyway, there's a lot of conversation around, the way that women have been persecuted for being women, but for being witches and all, and that, that conversation is all very wrapped together in itself. I mean, and there's good reason for it. But so one of the things that I'm always hearing Sal talk about is that there, obviously with yourself, but there are men in witchcraft also, and men have been persecuted for being witches as well. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, this is what I really wanted to have you on and open this conversation. Cool. So just a quick, Sal and I've known each other for years, and kind of when I was first studying, that's when I met you. I mean, I don't even know, it was 20 years ago now. So, we're a bit of magical family in that way. And, sure. since that time, Sal has his own business. He and his wife, Popey, it's called The Crooked Path. It's in Burbank. And he teaches witchcraft, amongst other things, and we're going to talk about your business and what it is that you do. And so anyway, we've reconnected recently in the past year or so, and I started doing a bunch of shows over there before everything got shut down. And so anyway, we're really happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
For sure.
So since you also are a teacher, let's just jump into it. I would love to have you explain to us what is your definition of witchcraft.
Wow, that's a pretty heavy one to start out with. But I mean, so I look at witchcraft as not necessarily always a spiritual movement. Witchcraft to me is very much a science. In the oldest forms, one of the oldest forms of science, but it's a way of bending things to your will by utilizing ritual magic structure, planetary magic, lunar magic, herbology, essential oils, and mix that in along with your incantation and your intent to cause change with will, and bending it to the where you need to go to achieve your goal. That's definitely the first and foremost perspective on witchcraft to me. It always hurt me a lot. I try not to let my personal self get hurt by it, but it can be kind of intense, because for a while, especially, you're always hearing about it being witches being women, and we are in a time in our world right now where women's sacred aspects, the sacred selves, they're getting to reclaim that, and I think that's a really, really important thing for them to experience. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm hearing myself twice. Where is that coming from? Is that me?
If you're open on that computer on Facebook, if you're open on any other, okay, yeah, close that. Because you've already shared it, so that's where you're hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not trying to take away from the fact that women are who they are. They're reclaiming their power, and I believe that is a very important thing. And any man that's truly a man to be able to stand beside a woman and see that greatness coming through, and not have a problem with it, because women need to be more upfront. I believe that in all things, sociologically, sociopolitically, I am very much a proponent of females in power. It's a huge part of who I am as an individual, but I don't blur it with witchcraft. You know, I believe that women are in power because they belong in power, but I don't believe that they need to necessarily use the platform of witchcraft to get that. You know what I mean? But witchcraft itself, when we think of it in its truest form, is people that acknowledge the fact that they can harmonize with the elements, with the earth, and your kitty's playing with fire behind you. And, you know, causing change with will. And that's really important. But also, you know, when you look at what happened in New England, where I'm actually from, a lot of women were tried and persecuted because of idiot men utilizing their power to basically, cause problems and kill people. And a lot of those people were women, because women were easier to repress back then. They had no rights, which is really shitty. And all those women that were being accused of witchcraft weren't really witches. They were just really good people. You know, they were people that lived great lives and were mothers and sisters and daughters, but then when it really came down to it, it was about land rights, really wanting the land that their family had, or, if they were alone and they're in the puritanical society, they were picked on. But as soon as they got to move them out by killing them off, they could take their land and then, run with it. And it would probably go to some, guy running that town, and that's a pretty broad perspective on it. But they were also doing that to men. And the people that were being charged with this weren't witches. And I think that now when you think of witchcraft, I tell people it's non-binary. It's not a genderized term. It is a person that works with the elements and their surroundings to cause change with will. Now, can this be spiritual? Sure, but it doesn't always have to be a spiritual thing. It doesn't have to be a goddess religion or a god and goddess religion. It can just be maybe an agnostic person working with spellcraft to do that type of thing. And this is why I would tell people I don't believe in hereditary witchcraft, because we're all hereditary witches. All we have to do is acknowledge that power and learn, get a foundation in witchcraft, and then build off of that and create a cohesive system that works for you. So that's where I'm at with witchcraft specifically. And I'm still picking up that.
Still?
From your side, yeah. Is my Facebook on?
Yeah, I have your face.
Sign out of Facebook?
You just need to exit out, because you've already shared, so we'll keep sharing.
Yeah. Hang on.
Okay.
So I have to sign out of Facebook. I am not techie at
Technology.
all. I think I did it. No, I didn't. I still hear it. I closed Facebook and I'm still picking it up.
Well.
Where are you?
Well, you need to go back to, yes.
There you are. So that's where I'm seeing it. See, like as soon as I say something, I'm hearing myself with you twice.
Have you closed? So this is some witchcraft. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Can you close all of your browsers except for this app? Can you
This is
close
the only
everything?
app that's open.
And then the phones, all of your phones are
off. Yeah.
Well,
on your end.
But on my end, it shouldn't send it back to you. All of my things are closed.
That's
and
so
I'm
weird. Now, if I turn this down, I can't hear you. Hello.
Let me just
See?
double check in here, but no. I
just closed out my. So watch, I'm going to show her. Give me a second. My Facebook's not open.
I believe you.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's definitely not. Why are we still picking up any noise? It's not that. I'm telling you. Yeah, it's not on our end. So we're gonna have to just deal with it.
All right, you just have to be really focused. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep myself focused. So that's where I'm at with it all. I mean, at the same time, though, the concept of women working with their inner goddess, with their goddess aspect, that is completely separate from witchcraft too. And I believe in it. And that gives the power of woman, because you are of the goddess, and that's your rightful claim. And even in my coven, my high priestess was actually one of my students. Well, now she's the goddess incarnate to me, especially in ritual. So that is a separate situation altogether, though. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Witchcraft itself is an action.
Yes.
And that's what I mean by when I say that.
There is a little bit of, it just is a little bit tied in for just the women's empowerment movement, the one that's happening now. A lot of it is women claiming this term as like a women's empowerment term, and then it's allowing women to get into, and it's not always exactly witchcraft. It might just be like their spiritual work, but there's definitely blurred lines as far as all of that goes. And
that's the problem that I have is like women shouldn't, it's not an allowed thing. Women should always have that realm. It shouldn't be allowed. It should be natural. It's yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I agree with you.
Like, I'm really about the women, the female empowerment movement. But
I know you
don't
are.
like when people they don't need a soapbox. The world is theirs. From goddess perspective, it's your world. And I believe that you are all taking it back. And I think that is a super important thing. And any man that's worked their spit should be behind that.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've been studying some stuff on my own and looking at, what's going on with the world and the Me Too movement and it's springtime and the claims and all women finally getting to speak up, And when you hear about, I don't think a man can be a feminist. I think that it's insulting to women to say that, because we aren't you. We can back feminism, which is what I do, but I can't be a feminist because I'm not a female. Right? I think that's weird when guys say that, and I think that they should give women more respect than that and not try to claim that they're feminists. But that's a person.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'd have to pull apart the definition. I think the point is that they are, by saying that, they are showing where they support and who and what they're supporting by saying all of that. I mean, and absolutely, I also know your practices. I know how much like you are in support of women. So it wasn't to have you on here to be like this conflicting view. It was just, I think that, and you're holding like a lot of space for women to reclaim their power and to like grow into their power. And that's awesome. And then you also say, it's not just all women, like men are witches too. And that's just, it's education. It's helpful for everyone to be teaching that. And so I have a question for you. What is the difference between being a witch and being a magician?
Usually, everybody's got their answer to this. And I'm only one person. I can only share how I see it.
Yeah.
I don't hold authority over what this term means. But what it means to me, when I use it in my terminology, usually a magician is someone that's practicing ceremonial magic, where a witch is someone that's working more in the microcosm and working more basically between the Yesod and the occult on the tree. That's witchcraft, because it's satiating the urge and the need to make things work to the will to better the self in this sphere. So that's witchcraft, where macrocosmically, when you start working in high magic, this is where the term magician is usually used. or magician or ceremonial magician.
It's a helpful clarification because a lot of people are just doing it, energetically, and they're like, well, I'm this, instead of this, and it's actually really specific. So because of all this, I took your Witchcraft 101. I mean, I didn't finish because the COVID happened and all of that. I love to study, but because also, so I've done a lot of studying, and I've worked with all kinds of different people, but I've done a lot of work also in the priestessing world and all of that, like more spiritual, more like women claiming their power and all of that, and it's awesome and it's beautiful and all of that. But the term witchcraft in those circles it's just different. It means something different, and some of these people have never studied the tree of life and ceremonial magic and any of that stuff. Ritual magic. Even though they're doing ritual, it's still different. So anyway, I would love for you to share with us about the type of witchcraft that you teach, because you were also teaching, like, I would love to hear about your journey and your practice. Actually, maybe we can start there, because I think for people, it's always interesting for people to hear where somebody else has started and how it started for them, and then how they identified within what they were learning, and then like how they progressed on their path.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, it started in 1982. I'll be 57 this summer. But in 1982, I was 17, 18, right in there. And I had a best friend who's no longer with us, and him and I started studying as much that we could find back in the early 80s. Now, you couldn't even walk into a bookstore and find books on neo-paganism or goddess work, really, or the god and goddess for that matter. Once in a while, you could find some smaller, like, paperback books, like Paul Hewson's Mastering Witchcraft came up once in a while. You could find the Janet Stewart Ferrara's work if you really looked for it or sent away for it, had it, mail ordered. But for the most part, when we started, it was always like Richard Cavendish's Mastering or the Treasury of Witchcraft by Richard Cavendish. And that was basically a Christian view on medieval magic and what was going on during the witch hysteria. And so it wasn't really teaching you witchcraft. It was a narrow perspective on what it was historically, they thought. So we dug as much as we could, and then we started finding things by Aleister Crowley, who was obviously a ceremonial magician who was in the Golden Dawn. And we worked with what we could. In 1985, I moved to Los Angeles. I wanted to be a singer in a band and come to Hollywood and about rock and roll and long hair. I never left that. But I got here, and one of the first things I did was try to find information on witchcraft. By 1988, I had met someone at Visions and Dreams, which was in Newport Beach, California. And I started taking a course with him. His name was Guy Richard. And he was teaching what was called the Eclectic Gardnerian Wicca. And I jumped right in and did my time with him. I did a year and a day. And at the end of that, I found the Eye of the Cat. And the Eye of the Cat was in Long Beach, and it was over on Broadway. And there's a woman named Judith Dufresne, and she was also teaching, but she was teaching something called the DCW, which was Druidic Craft of the Wise. And I had a little bit of eclectic Gardnerian under my belt, and I just started learning her versions of things, and I started seeing a lot of what touched upon what I would later know as ceremonial magic. Banishing pentagrams and invoking pentagrams, things of that nature, the archangels, things along those lines. So I stayed and I did my time again with her, was baptized at Eye of the Cat. And now you're looking at 89, 91, right in that area. Around that point, I left and I joined the Golden Dawn. And the Golden Dawn, as we know, is a ceremonial magic order that was originally developed in right about 1864. And it had gone through various changes, and a lot of offshoots came out of the Golden Dawn. Things like the OTO, orders like the OTO or Temple of Selima, BOTA, Edgar Case's work. A lot of his stuff came through BOTA after that. So I joined that order, and I spent some time with them, moving my way through it. And that just really broadened my perspective on Kabbalah and on the Tree of Life and ceremonial magic and the structures of it and how it works. By the end of my time there, I was working the Renaissance Fair in San Bernardino.
Oh, that's right.
And right about that time, I had entered into a marriage with a girl that I knew 12 days. And it was a really odd one. But we were both young, and we moved to Eagle Rock. And I lived in Eagle Rock, and we lived in a temple house. The people that we lived with were in the Golden Dawn, and they also were in DCW with me back in the day. So during that time, I opened a small store with a cousin of mine, and we called it Talisman Times over on York Boulevard in Eagle Rock.
Wow.
Lasted about 5 months. Yeah. Lasted about 5 months, and it just did not do good. And he was very much a Scorpio, and he didn't see results quick enough, and he was like, we're done. So one day, when I walked into the store, he's like, the store is closed. It's just not working, and I've sold everything in it. And we didn't have a lot of product, but I was a little bit pissed off, and I'm like, man, this is like my thing, you know? And he's like, well, somebody's coming, and they're going to buy out all this stuff. So we sat around during the day, and we hashed this out. And then finally, somebody walked in the store, and he just walks in, and he just starts pointing. I'm taking that. I'll take that. I'm going to take the herbs. I'm going to take those candles, and I'll give you some low amount of money for all this stuff. And we're like, you're trying to go back and forth with this guy. And at the end of it, when we settled, he's like, okay, have it all brought to this address. And he's like, I'll take the kid too. And he was pointing at me, and I'm like, I ain't part of this deal. And he's like, yeah, you are. He's like, come to the address. So I went to the address, and it was panpipes. And that guy was George Derby. And George was a son of a bitch. He became probably the best mentor I've ever had magically. Firuza Balk was his student, and right at that point, she bought panpipes. So I was technically working for her, but we were learning together from George. And I was there through about 2.5 years, on and off, and then the girls came in. And actually, Vicky came into the store the very first time, and she bought oil from me. That was her first memory of panpipes, was me being this girly boy selling her oil, and she was this beautiful goth girl. And we had this girl working in the back that was a computer genius that had just gotten out of the service, and that was Jimmy.
Yeah.
And so they met, and then that whole thing branched. George left, I moved on, and that was around the time you came in.
Yeah, that's where we met at Panpipes, which is, oldest occult store.
Yeah, I came in like 6 months after that, and there you were, and I'm like, wow, who is this? And I was pretty blown away by you. And
you had your hair was red, and you were coming in with your flyers for your goth club.
For my goth club, yeah.
Which I came to a few different ones of your nights, for sure. Yeah.
So it went there, and then I went back from there. I went to Raven's Flight. And Raven's Flight was on Vineland and Magnolia, about 2 miles from where my store is now. And that was anywhere between 98 and 2001. I was actually working there, and I was in the Wildwood Coven, and Griffin was my high priest, and Raven was the high priestess. Then, of course, like all things, it ended, and this is when the birth of the Green Man.
Yeah, I was going to say those are Green Man people, right?
Yeah, now the Green Man came from there. And then practicing, moving through my life. And then I met my wife. We got together, and she believed in me. She gave me a shot because she's a business person. And we built a concept, and we opened the Crooked Path, and it's become a success.
It's such a beautiful store. The energy of the both of you, it's really great. And what's cool is that it's also old school, like panpipes. I mean, I didn't go to the other stores that you were at, but it's old school. It feels like an old witchy store. It doesn't feel like this new age, it doesn't feel like any of that at all. And anyway, there's real work being done in the store, and you can feel it.
Right on. And usually when people are walking in, I'm usually doing something. I'm always like making a pop it, or some girl came in and I had like my mask on because it's COVID, of course. But, and I had like another piece wrapped around my head. She's like, aren't you going a little overboard? I'm like, not really. I'm making hot foot powder. And I don't want to breathe it in, So we deal with that. That was our new puppy.
Oh, can we see?
Hey. We got
that doesn't sound like a puppy. That sounds like a big dog.
He's a great game.
Cool.
He's over there. I don't know if you can see him. He's going down.
Just a little bit.
He's a doll. So his name is Hermes.
Nice.
But, so that basically is my history in a jar. But my system of magic, what I teach is, when I tell people I teach witchcraft, I always tell them that it's non-anthropomorphic based witchcraft. So it's not my job to alter or influence someone's spirituality. I don't care if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're a Satanist, if you're agnostic, if you're a goddess worshiper, that doesn't matter to me. When you come and you take my 10-week course in witchcraft, it is teaching you the structure of basic witchcraft environment, circle, how to invoke and, call the quarters, raise the cone, cut the circle, set up your altar, what the tools do, how to work with the basic element, the 7 ancient planets come into play. And in some, I teach a little people some theoretical stuff on spellcraft. And on the last night of that, which we didn't get to do, people run a circle. And usually I have about 35 to 40 people in the class. And I break that up into groups. And then one person is usually the head of that group, which you were. You actually you were running a group. And you guys were going to run your own circle, and then COVID hit. Because on the last night, I do a full-on ritual. I let people do a full-on ritual, and I just step back and watch it. So they understand what it's like to work with other people and what it's like to call the quarters and move through these types of things. So when they walk away, now they've got, after 10 weeks, a basic structure of how to do physical witchcraft. And this is where you then can become eclectic. Because, one of my things is a lot of people, especially through the end of the 90s and into the 2000s, people started using the word eclecticism kind of very loosely. It's almost like how I'm sure you've experienced the namaste word. People throwing it around like it was something you found in 7-Eleven when it's a sacred word, and for me, eclecticism without foundation is just a mess. You know what I mean? So when I give them 10 weeks, now they can go, I don't like what Sal was doing here, but I see why he taught me that. And now I can change it to this and bring in this deity because I want to work with this deity specifically. And that space is open. So that's the basics for my 10-week course in witchcraft. And people, if they so choose, they can do a 10-week course in ceremonial magic from there.
Yeah, it was really cool because it's very practical. It's very practical. You learn the tools, you learn a structure of how to do things. I learned a ton, and I've studied a ton, but I learned a ton, and I learned a ton of things that I never learned before.
So rad.
Working with you. I mean, I was like, Sal's a Virgo. I'm like, yes, let me study from a Virgo, because they're just going to give you like every single detail, all of the information that you need. And also, you know, it's very practical. So, you know, you could take it and you can make it all spiritual, and you can put your parts in and remove the things that you don't like and whatever.
Exactly. But you're, you know, I mean, having you in the room was hard, because I'm, you know, I have a lot of respect for you. You were my peer. And, you know, we came in, and I also believe that our magical lineage, we're in the same bloodline because of our past. So I that's a very important thing to me. So to have you as a student in my class, I'm like, I don't know, that's weird, you know? But
I mean, that's my way. I was also there to support you. That is also what I do. That's what I do. I mean, that's my whole podcast. It's like, I support people that I care about or connect with for whatever reason, and especially if people are doing things with integrity and in alignment with, you know, my belief system. Like, you know, integrity is like, that's what matters to me, and truth and real education. And so anyway, I mean, I also love to have the experience, and so I'm actually enjoying the learning that I am doing during this time period, during this COVID time period. And then a lot of it is online, because I'm so much like of an in-person type of person, which is why, you know, like, I'm waiting to finish what I started with you until we do get to be in person again. Because a lot of it too, and when you learn from people, for me, it's really being in their energy, or being around their energy, and then experiencing what it feels like, the way that they work, because there is an intellectual component for sure, but then, you know, you experience the way that someone else like is in alignment with their energy and working their magic, and it just helps you feel your own more. But I'm just really like, I can sense things in that way, and so that's really what I wanted to experience. And, you know, I take a ton of classes, and if somebody has something going on that I'm into, you know, I support it, and then I talk about it, and I tell my friends about it, and then, you know, I have them on my podcast. And especially I mean, you know, I'm down with all of the magical everything that's going on, you know, and however like vanilla it is for someone, or if they start it, you know, some like really commercial type of new agey just type of place. It's like how yoga was a bunch of years ago, where obviously yoga and asana practice has been around for a while, but it became super trendy for everybody to be going to yoga. But look at the consciousness level now. There's been a lot of awakening, and I really think it has to do with yoga being on trend and everybody getting really involved. So I like to be a point of good reference, you know, and I like to share things that I find that are of quality. And yours is also very specific, you know, it's very specific what it is that you offer. And so I would love to ask about Hecate.
Yeah.
I knew that you would like that, but I would love to, hear about that work a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, Hecate, for me, so for the many years that I've been practicing, I never had a deity that I worked with. When I was in the Golden Dawn, I was all about my holy guardian angel, and bringing down the higher aspect of self down, you know, down through Keter into Malkut, and channeling the energy of my God energy, you know, and which we all have. Or goddess energy, or both, actually, because of, you know, mercy and severity, feminine and masculine, and definitely the divine feminine and masculine within. I was really focused on that mostly all the time. So all these years, I never worked with the goddess. I wasn't, it's not that I was against it, it just never came up, you know. And then about like 8 months before we opened the store, we were in Greece, and I always tell people that it was kind of like I got donkey punched in the head, and it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't a passive thing. Kate basically told me that's what it was, you know, this is her, this is what I'm going to do, and it was kind of like this intervention came through her, and it was, you know, my wife and I, before we were married, actually, And I knew very little about her. And once I committed, I went through Sarita de Est, is one of my favorite author on Hecate study. She's done, I think it's, well, she's got the liminal rites of Hecate and the rite of her sacred fires. Two of her books. She's got way more than that, but those two are really important. And the Sacred Fires ritual was something that she developed. It was a world ritual that she developed, I think around 7 years before that, before I got involved, where people that were with Hecate were within a 24-hour space and time, usually the full moon in May. They would do this ritual that she developed that would be like a communion with Hecate. And so I did that. And I also went through COH, which is Covenant of Hecate, which she's connected to, and petitioned to actually be a member. And I did my dedication to her, and that started the path. But then after the path started with her, I started seeing different avenues open up about her. A lot of people, when I talked to them about Hecate, it was always about her being the crone and the triple goddess form, and that would just get under my skin really easily, because that's really not fact. Graves wrote The White Goddess in the 50s. It was a series of poetry, different poetic pieces on paganism and goddess worship. And he's the one that actually, in the modern era, pointed her at as being that aspect of the maiden mother crone perspective. Because when you're in Wicca and you're learning early on, this is the phases of the moon, right?
Right.
Maiden mother crone aspect. And the crone he said, was the Hecate energy. And he pulled that from Crowley. And Crowley pulled that from Shakespeare. Because when you look at Shakespeare's work, when he did Macbeth, he had Hecate looking like a withered old woman. But when you look historically at Hecate in ancient times, like way before 1600, obviously, like 300 CE, around that era, she was like maybe 25 to 30. And she was a young woman. She wasn't aged. And sometimes you saw her with 3 heads, but every head was the same age. It wasn't an age change. It was just her looking in 3 directions, because in ancient Greece, she was put in front of the villages to protect and look at everything. That's why she was also the crossroad. So she would stand in the crossroad and look what was coming in and out of the village that she governed there. So that was one way of seeing her. And then you'd also see her as a psychopomp, which, and if we know what a psychopomp is a specific deity that can traverse life and death. So if you have an ancestor or someone that died that you were close to, you would go to Hecate or to a psychopomp, and they would communicate directly with them for you. And she, in one of her perspectives, she was a psychopomp. But in that perspective, she was animal-headed or bitch-headed. So she had like a wolf head, a serpent head, some visions it was a horse. There were three or four of them at a time. She wasn't always triple. Sometimes she was 4. It just depended on where they needed to put that image. So within that space, very quickly after I studied Sarita's work, I started reading up on a guy out of Spain named Mark Allen Smith. And Mark Allen Smith comes at things from more of a dark perspective, but darkness does not mean evil. I'm very specific about that word. And anybody that knows magic, like I know you do, knows that darkness is very much a part of our lives. just like the light is. But he comes at it from more of a dark side of things, and or a kliplothic side. And the kliploth is a term used in Kabbalah. It's almost, without going too into it, it's their negative space. It's the shells of the negative. But when you work in Mark Allen Smith's realm, you work with Hecate. She is considered the queen of hell. And then her consort is Lucifer, the light bearer. And then their offshoot is Belial.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go further into the studies, you start seeing that it connects to the what's the word? The Atlantean world. So Atlantean magic was involved in it. And it just stemmed further into different mythos within his system. So I studied that for a while, and it was beautiful, but I didn't quite stick. And then I got connected to Jason Miller. And Jason Miller is a great author. He's got some good books out. One of the books is that he does that's very popular. It's called Protection and Reversal Magic. And it's just, from the get-go, you're doing spellcraft and you're learning protection rituals and reversal rituals in case there's ever been attacks has happened to you. And as you go through it, it's very much dedicated and built around Hecate. So I really connected with that. And from there, I talked to other people and found out that he has a series it basically was about 8 months long, and it was called The Sorcery of Picante, where he teaches you how to enter a mandala, because he has a background in Vedic systems and Nepal and things of that in that part of the world. So he really adapted and built in the Hecatian system with a specific mandala and chant that you learn. And myself and Popey and some other people moved through that system, and we ended it, and now we're in the second series of that. So that's now where I'm at with Hecate, and I mean, she is 150% the center of my spirituality. You can see, I'll show you real quick. You just give you a little flip, you can see the altar, I think. How do you flip this thing? I guess I can't. I'll show you.
I don't think
but
so.
Anyways, I'm not techie, as we know. But I have an altar that I go to every night. I do my work every night to Hecate. There's a certain rituals that I have to do every night of the week. And it has played itself into the store. Now, when you come to the store, you definitely know you're in Hecate's place. She is looking at you in every area of the store. I had an artist paint torches on the outside to call Hecatean people to the store, and it totally worked. And when you come in, I very often give tours because of COVID right now. It's, we're very stringent on how we work in the COVID realm. So we're only allowing like 4 people to store at a time. You have to be masked up and have gloves on. And everybody's been very respectful of that. So when they come in, I'll give them a little quick 50-cent tour. And within that tour, I take them up to Hecate's temple and explain it all. So that's in a nutshell where Hecate is for me in my life, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see. What other kind of questions do I have for you? For people who aren't in LA and can't come to your store, they can still work with you. You're still doing classes online. You have your entire shop online.
Yes.
So we want to hear all that information, and what are just, real quick, some of the services that you offer for people
Well, the store is, our store is very much an old school apothecary. We have I don't know the exact number. We have over 200 herbs in jars. We're becoming very quickly known as the local place to get your herbs because they're very well priced. And we get them all food grade if at all possible. If they come at food grade, we'll always get them that way. We can't discuss inducing herbs in the store because we don't have licenses for that. But I teach people about the magical perspectives on how to use herbs in witchcraft and in spellcraft. You can also get any essential oil that you're looking for, and we also do custom oil blends. My day is usually made up doing some type of dressing candles. I carve candles and dress them for a specific intent. I make Grigri bags, which is a very, very common thing to get. I usually do at least 1 or 2 a week. And the Grigri bag, Grigri means gray, so it's neither black nor white magic. But it's basically a bag that is planetarily correlated by color. It's imbued with your astrological oil through your sign. And then it's filled with specific herbs and stones. And then I usually enchant it right there in my workspace in front of people for a specific intent. So it's just it's a physical spell that they can carry. When I'm not doing those things in the store, I just rehash, how the store works. There's many different systems out there, as we know, but our store is based not loosely. It's pretty much straight up based on planetary magic. I think it's really important that people start to understand the 7 ancient planets and utilize them for spell work. Because a lot of people, especially new people, they come in wanting to do lunar magic, which is a great thing. But when you work in the lunar realm to do spellcraft, you're limiting yourself because, it's basically is working through its 3 phases. You're waxing full and waning moon. And really it's the waxing and the waning moon that are really more important for spellcraft, because if it's waxing, it's growing. Therefore, you want anything that's productive that you're going to bring into your world, you're going to go into the waxing moon. When the waning is, if you're trying to get rid of something or stop a habit, you're going to work in the waning moon. So if you're on the waning side, but you want to do a waxing working, you have to wait weeks till you can get your work done. So planetary magic is made. So that's right here. Planetary magic is made so every day of the week you can do spellcraft. I know it's really hard to see, but this is craft that I made. And every day of the week is one of the 7 ancients. So this is why we have the names of the days of the week. Monday is the moon, Tuesday is Mars, Wednesday is Mercury, Thursday is Jupiter, Friday is Venus, Saturday is the Saturn, Sunday is the Sun. Through Ptolemaic structure and Kabbalah, we get the colors that we're looking at that represent those planets across the top here. This is where we get the colors of the candles that we use for the spell that we need to do. So if you're doing something for communication or something in the arts to maybe sign, you want to get signed and you're a singer, right, and a musician, but you're trying to get, contracts signed to get things moving in your life, you're going to go into Mercury, because Mercury is communication, contractual agreements, and anything to do with the arts. So you get an orange candle and you would go ahead. Now, all those herbs that we have in the store, every one of those jars has a planet symbol put on it. And that way, when you look up there, that lavender is Mercury. So now you get your lavender, you get your orange candle, and you get maybe a Mercury oil. You anoint your candle and you roll it through those herbs and you light it on Wednesday. That's your basic spell. So it's very easily done where you can do things almost at any time. And it even gets easier, if you're wanting to do that Mercury spell because you got something coming up that you need to sign, but it's Thursday afternoon. You don't want to wait till next Wednesday. So within every day are the 7 planets repeated on the hour. but that changes every day of the week. So you have to, I point people in the direction of downloading some really good applications on their phone, and you can check the time and you light the candle at that point. So that's basically what the story is founded on. And when people talk to me about stones, for me, the stones that we are utilizing, they're representatives of those planets as well.
Yeah,
and
same.
so you put those around the working that you're trying to do. I don't really work in the chakra world, in working with the chakra system. I have nothing against it. It's just not my forte. I'm very much into European witchcraft. And I'm also, I have a background in the Voodoo systems as well. So I can discuss that. But as far as the chakras go, people want to align, and I can give them a basic idea on what, where your chakra sits and what color goes where, or I can show them a chart. But that's not really what the story is based on.
Yeah.
And people usually, when they come in, they're like, oh, I really want to do this because I want to do the energy of the chakras. But by the time I get through my speech, they're wanting to do a spell. Because now they're realizing that they can do this. And that's really the whole reason for our shop. It's like our manifesto almost. Magic is there for all of us to do. No one is better. Just because you and I have our experience doesn't mean that we're more suited for this. Anybody that acknowledges the fact that they can practice spellcraft and witchcraft makes them a witch, which goes right back to where I started from the beginning of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is about being human and acknowledging the fact that you have the power to cause change with will by utilizing these corresponding elements. So that's what the story's about.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. It helps people teaches people to be empowered, but then also it helps you look at, well, what are you doing anyway already without thinking about what it is that you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because we light candles and we work with herbs and we eat them. And anyway, could just, go on about all of that. Candle magic is my favorite though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love candle magic.
It's how I get the most. It's how I get the most done. It helps me to focus my attention.
Sure.
So at all points.
Good results.
Yeah.
I just love ritual magic, and like that's the other thing is like, sometimes people get in and will ask questions about words, and this is my only problem with what's going on in the world right now is this is not a dig towards young people. I think that young people there's a lot of things I'm not too cool with about young people because I'm a crotchety old man. Like I love music from the 80s. I don't know what you guys listen to today, but that's just being the old man yelling at you to get off his lawn. But what people do have that we don't have are very open minds and knowing that they can do pretty much anything they want to. And I love that. But what I think inhibits this is that it's so easy to go to Instagram to get an answer on how to do a spell, that they're not learning they're not learning the foundation of witchcraft. For me, it's like there's 4 things, will, faith, imagination, and secrecy. Those 4 things are really important in witchcraft. And then once you're doing spellcraft, there's 3 big words: no fear, no guilt, no self-doubt. Because everybody wants to categorize things. Oh, this is black magic. This is white magic. This is the left-hand path. This is the right-hand path. This is of the light. This is the dark. That's to me, that's bullshit. We are all those things. And a great author said in a book that I very much like, he said, there is no black or white magic, just a magician. And that means, when you step up to things, your inside self will tell you, okay, should I be doing this right now or not? If it says no, walk away. It doesn't mean you lose your badass badge if you don't do it. You don't do it because it's just not right now. But at the same time, don't let words like karma scare you. Karma shouldn't be a word that people fear. They should embrace karma. because karma is what we live, especially if you're working in that system. You know what I mean? But people have used that as a fear tactic in neo-paganism and witchcraft through the 90s.
Oh, right. They're afraid of karma because of, you know,
Yeah.
what they might be doing with magic or whatever.
Yeah.
The thing about all that stuff is that it's existing anyway. It's happening anyway. So that behavior that you're having over there, or your shit talking or whatever it is that you're doing, and that's the same. Like, this is cause and effect. And so that's the cool thing about magic and practical magic, is it allows you to be clear about what your intentions are, focus, make decisions, take responsibility for your decisions, check in with your inner wisdom. Is this something I should be doing or not doing, or why am I doing this? This is always a good question for all of us. Why are we doing
tomorrow, it? You know?
Yeah.
You can. You just got, you know, and that's it. But you don't want to live in fear. You just have to, you know, when you step up to the plate to do your work, you have to know here that this is right. And if it's not feeling right, then you shouldn't be doing it. That's
totally
easy. You know, and nobody else can make that decision for you. Your gods are your gods. Even if you worship the same God as I, it's still your God, because it's your perspective on your goddess or God. You know, I mean, I don't work with a male energy. I just can't stand. I don't like working with male energy, so I don't have a god that I work with. I only work with a goddess. Again, I just don't like them. Male energy is always squeezing me out, you know, as it is. You know, it's just always bothered me. So I've always been, you know, a proponent for the feminine and the goddess energy. So it's super important. And, you know, it's also one of the things that is a gray area, and I almost don't know if I should bring it up, but it's like, don't judge someone for working in a system because they don't match the ethnicity of that system. Because we don't know what we were in the past. Most of us believe in past lives. And if we're believing in past lives, and, you know, we don't know what gender we were or what ethnicity we were. And if we're being called to a specific deity structure, that's because a voice from our past is trying to reclaim that space. You know what I mean? And I think that's super important to know that. None of us are here to pass judgment on one another. We're here to get through this life and be the best we can at what we do. So that's super important.
It's just ultimately like just a lack of responsibility that people have taken, you know, and it's the way that things become so trendy or, you know, misused. You know, I've been thinking about this as well. So this is, you know, this is a subject matter that like the younger generations are really focused on. And I think that different generations come in with different focus and different things that they're upset about to bring balance to the situations. And for sure with like our famous culture, right? With the social media and with everything, it's like magic is used, symbols are used, all these things are used without people knowing what it is that they're using, doing any research, without having any personal connection to them. But yeah, you know, I feel that I have a big ankh on my arm, and I put that on my arm, you know, it's because I was dreaming of it. And lots of readings that I've had, I have a lot. I think one of my more recent, you know, who knows, but one of my past incarnations, I absolutely had experience in Egypt. But with all of everything that's going on with, you know, like white culture being really insensitive to the way that they've taken things from others. I mean, that is also real. That's also, you know, that's been going on. And so it's just, I mean, I've had a lot of people challenge me about that in my life. And I've met some amazing people because of that symbol that I have on my arm, and people coming up because, you know, I'm this tall, long-legged, you know, blonde hair. Until you talk to me, you don't actually know anything about what I'm about, and being a waitress and all of that. I've had a lot of people being like, do you even know what that's all about? And then of course, like, I do know what it's about. And then they're like, okay, right on. But yeah, so I think it's important for everybody to question what it is that they're doing. Like, are they doing their part and doing the research? There's also, research to be done, just listening to your own self and using your own intuition. You don't always have to rely on what, someone else is saying or what this book over here is saying. There's definitely truth into like our own wisdom that we're pulling in from past incarnations. So anyway, I think it's, and maybe one of the teachings that, is that you balance, like you offer like a balance. So maybe everybody's kind of over here in this way of thinking, but you seem to be someone that needs to just bring in the balance of opinion, the balance of truth and reality, just to remind us all.
Sure.
Well,
that's my point with what you're just saying there is the same thing I'm talking about to term eclecticism. Everybody's like, oh, I'm eclectic because I read this and I'm going to try this thing. Or when I've got somebody coming in, hi, I'm Mary, I need to do this spell and I need a green candle. Usually when people come in and say that to me, I'm not being a shit when I do this, but I'm saying, okay, but why is it green? Well, because that's what it says it is, but why? See, if you don't know why it's green, but you're doing it blatantly, it's not helping you achieve the goal without the knowledge of why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's super important. And, I always tell people also when they're like, oh no, it has to be absolutely a green candle because this is an ancient spell from ancient times. And then this is usually where I chime in and say, well, 100 years ago, there was no color in wax. Animal fat. So this is why gemstones were so expensive. Why were they so expensive? Because they could cast colored light on a wall.
Oh, so you were sharing about that.
Yeah. So that's color magic. It works, but all those colors come from the scale of Bria, which is one of the worlds in Kabbalah, the tree of life. But if you just know pieces like that, that's going to get you further than going, oh, I'm do this, and then I have to stand on my left foot, and I got to lift my right leg up and arc my body. No, you don't. But this isn't a spell. Your spell, your incantation is your passion. If you want that lover in your life, write out how much you want that lover in your life. Make tears roll off your face. If you're angry, be mad when you're writing the words. If you need this job, invoke the emotion that you need to get that job. Write it. And they're like, oh, but that doesn't work. It's not a spell because it doesn't rhyme. Not everybody's a limricist. It's words that you have created with your emotion. And when you recite those and then you burn the candle, you're doing exactly what the ancients did.
Yeah.
And
people will, I just like to say this, it's funny. People also, you'll learn the hard way. Like, if you do it wrong, some things are harmless totally, and then some other things are not. And so, if people want to play around and not pay attention to what they're doing and not do some research, you can learn the hard way.
Get bit on the ass for sure. It happens to us even as we get older. It still happens to me. I'm always learning. I'm always look at all these years, and now I'm taking another year-long course because I want to learn more. Just like you.
Yeah.
A good magician and a good witch, we don't stop learning because we can always add more to our grimoire, to our level of magic. The minute we shut that off, we're screwed. We might not identify with some systems. Like I don't really, I don't really connect with the Vedic system or the Eastern system. It just doesn't work for me. But, when I talk about Kabbalah, I still get excited. That one works for me. It's definitely important. I hope people get something out of this. It's important.
I know we had such a lesson. We really had such a lesson here, and you got to share with us. I was pretty quiet for most of it. We just kind of got to. I hear the dog.
He's huge.
Yeah, that's why I was like, that doesn't sound like a puppy. That sounds like it's coming from a big being.
He is underweight. Right now, he's 2 pounds.
Wow.
We got to get him to 120.
Okay.
That's our goal. And to get him not to make the floor soaking wet whenever he drinks water. He just went from one water bowl to another water bowl. And now he's got water like a river on the floor. And as he goes in, he shakes it and just put it all over Poppy's hair.
Teaching animals is also a really, I think is another really important thing to experience, you know, with all of these things. But I have these 3 cats, and I've had a lot of cats before, but 2 of them I bottle fed, and I've had a very, very real experience with communicating with them and teaching them what it is that I mean and how to communicate with me. And it's great, you know, when you have them when they're young, and really taking responsibility for your behavior in regards to them, and how are you teaching them, and how
are you learning from them?
Yeah. And there's this one, and I keep trying to teach him how I want to be communicated with, but if he communicates with me that way, I better respond. Because then what he's like, you're not responding, so I'm going to do the other thing. And so anyway, that's like a whole other conversation. But, you know, there's something to learn all over the place. And the more that we can be conscious and be intentional, and that's going to always shift. Our consciousness is always going to shift and grow. And, you know, our intentions based on our current level of education or experience also going to grow. But, I think that magic is a good way of just bringing that focus in, and it's not scary. And like you were saying, it's it's not inherently negative or positive or good or bad or any of that. It's really like, what is it that's coming from you? And so, I love this work of being intentional. I love being intentional and people being focused and aware and conscious and taking responsibility for what they're doing. So Thank you for sharing with us so many tools. I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes, but why don't you just say here, since it's on the podcast, what's your website name? How do we find you in all the places?
Okay, yeah. So I usually mess this up, but bear with me. So our website at the store is thecrookedpathshop.com. There is the Crooked Path _LA is the Instagram. You want to take him out? I think he's wanting to go out. Crooked Path _LA is the Instagram for the shop. You can find me on my new personal Instagram. I just got my first Instagram. I've got like 350 followers, and every day I'm putting up some type of spell work for people to learn from. You can find me at Salvatore. That's SALVATORE_modern_witch. So you can find me on there. Also, every Wednesday night, myself and my co-host her name is Renee.
Oh, right.
She's the head tarot reader at our shop. You can find her at Rainbow Glitter Star on Instagram. We have a weekly show that's on YouTube called Betwixt the Shadows. So B as in boy, ETWIXT, The Shadows, on YouTube and on Instagram, and that is also an email. And if you sign in every Wednesday night at 7:00, you can talk to us live, ask us questions, and we will answer them for you right there. Or you can send them in earlier in the week, and every episode is downloaded. So you can, it's a learning show. So it's so people can learn witchcraft from a distance. Because of COVID, and I don't have a way of giving people blessings. So those are the main ways to find us.
Awesome.
And, I hope to have you on the show.
Yeah, I would love to be on the show.
Yeah, have you in, which would be an absolutely great thing. Jamie, I appreciate you letting me be the first male witch on your show. It's really important. And I just want to end my last words to everyone out there is, please, I mean no disrespect if I said things wrong. It's a hard thing to get across because women in power is one of the main focuses of my life. I live with a very alpha woman that I'm married to. I am very much a Kamala Harris supporter. I love her. I love the power of women, and I want to see it move forward. Just if anything I can do to further that along, I'm always going to be a proponent in that realm. I respect all of you and all the goddess energy that all of you have. And thank you so much for allowing me to share my background with you all.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It's been a pleasure, and it's so nice to see you. For everyone who's here listening,